The email notification pinged on my screen at 4:47 p.m. on a Monday. Emma, please see me immediately. Mr. Thompson. I stared at those words. I froze in place. I'd worked as marketing manager at Horizon Digital for 6 years, and I knew that tone. Something was wrong. I saved my work and walked down the hall to his corner office, my heels clicking against the tile floor. Through the glass walls, I could see Mr. Thompson hunched over his desk, his face tight with stress. "Close the door," he said without looking up when I entered. I sat down across from him, smoothing my skirt nervously. "Emma, we have a situation. The Anderson account needs a complete rebrand by January 15th. They're threatening to pull their contract if we don't deliver." "Okay," I said slowly. "What does that have to do with me?" He finally looked up, and I saw something in his eyes that made my blood run cold. Not respect. Not partnership. Just cold calculation. "Your December leave is canceled. We need all hands on deck for this project." The words hung in the air between us like smoke. My December leave. The 2 weeks I'd requested 8 months ago. The trip to see my parents in Oregon that I'd been planning since spring. The break I desperately needed after a brutal year. "You're canceling approved leave?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "It's not personal, Emma. The company's needs have to come first." Mr. Thompson's voice was flat, businesslike, as if he was discussing a vendor contract, not appending my entire holiday plans. "I requested this time off in April. It was approved. I have non-refundable plane tickets. I understand it's inconvenient, but this is the reality of working in a competitive industry. Sometimes we have to make sacrifices." Sacrifices. That word burned in my chest. I'd been making sacrifices for 6 years. Working weekends. Skipping lunch. Answering emails at midnight. Covering for colleagues. Taking on extra projects without extra pay. All while Mr. Thompson took 3-week vacations to Europe and left his phone off. "The Anderson account is your responsibility," he continued, shuffling papers on his desk. "You've managed them from the beginning. They trust you. This rebrand is make or break for us." "What about the rest of the team? Why can't Paolo or Stephanie handle it? They don't have your relationship with the client. And frankly, Emma, this isn't a negotiation. Consider this a directive." I sat there, frozen. My mind raced through options, arguments, ways to make him understand how unfair this was. But looking at his face, I realized something. He didn't care about fairness. He cared about convenience. And I'd spent 6 years being convenient. I returned to my desk in a daze. My coworker Stephanie noticed immediately. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Mr. Thompson canceled my December leave. Her eyes widened.
"What?"
"Your Oregon trip? Emma, you've been planning that for months. Apparently the Anderson account is more important than approved leave." Stephanie's face hardened. She'd worked at Horizon Digital for 4 years and had her own stories about Mr. Thompson's casual cruelty. That's so typical of him. Remember when he made Paolo cancel his anniversary trip for the Fletcher presentation, which ended up being postponed anyway? I did remember. Paolo had been furious, and his wife had been even angrier. But Paolo had stayed, swallowed his resentment, and kept working. Just like everyone expected me to do now. "What are you going to do?" Stephanie asked quietly. I stared at my computer screen, at the email from Mr. Thompson confirming the cancellation, at the calendar reminder for my flight to Portland in 3 weeks, at the folder of restaurant reservations and hiking trails I'd bookmarked. "I don't know," I said. But somewhere deep in my chest, a small flame of anger was starting to burn. And once that flame caught, it wouldn't be easily extinguished. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying 6 years of moments I'd brushed aside. The time Mr. Thompson took credit for my campaign strategy in front of the board. The annual reviews where he praised my work but said there was no room in the budget for raises. The projects I'd championed that he dismissed, only to implement later as his own ideas. The constant comments about how I needed to be more assertive while simultaneously talking over me in meetings. I told myself it was normal, that every job had frustrations, that I should be grateful for stable employment and decent benefits. But lying there in the dark, I realized something. I wasn't grateful. I was tired. Bone deep, soul-crushing tired. Not just from the work, but from the constant diminishment. From being treated as a resource rather than a person. From giving everything and receiving only the expectation of more. Around 3 a.m., I made a decision. It wasn't dramatic or impulsive. It was quiet and certain, like a door closing softly but permanently. I was done. I would submit my resignation. Not in 2 weeks. Not after the holidays. Immediately. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like the first deep breath I'd taken in years. The next morning, I arrived at the office early. Before anyone else got in, I opened a blank document and began typing. Dear Mr. Thompson, I am writing to inform you of my resignation from Horizon Digital, effective immediately. My hands moved across the keyboard with surprising steadiness. No long explanations. No emotional outbursts. Just professional, clean, and final. I listed the projects I'd been managing and provided basic handoff notes. I thanked him for the opportunity. I wished the company well. All the proper corporate language for something that felt deeply improper, walking away from 6 years of my life with 2 paragraphs and a signature. I printed the letter, sealed it in an envelope, and placed it in my desk drawer. Then I went about my day normally, responding to emails, attending meetings, smiling at colleagues. All while carrying the secret knowledge that this was my last day. The liberation was intoxicating. Sitting in a status meeting while Mr. Thompson droned on about Q4 projections, I realized I'd never have to endure another one of these tedious sessions. I'd never have to nod along while he took credit for work he didn't do. I'd never have to sacrifice my personal life for his professional convenience. I was done being convenient. At 3 p.m., I walked down to Human Resources. Patricia Wilson, the HR director, looked up from her computer with a friendly smile. Emma, what can I do for you? I handed her the envelope. I'm submitting my resignation, effective immediately. Her smile vanished. Immediately? Emma, the standard notice period is 2 weeks. I understand. But I'm exercising my right to resign, without notice. I've documented all my current projects in this letter. I'm happy to answer questions via email for the next few days, but I won't be returning to the office after today. Patricia's professional mask slipped slightly, revealing genuine concern. This is about the December leave cancellation, isn't it? So word had spread. Of course it had. Nothing stayed secret in an office this size. It's about a lot of things. But yes, that was the final factor. Emma, I want you to know that I disagreed with that decision. I told Mr. Thompson it was poor management, but he insisted it was necessary. I appreciate that, Patricia, but the decision is made. I need you to process my resignation and prepare my final paycheck. She nodded slowly, already typing. I'll need you to turn in your badge and laptop before you leave today. Of course. I stood there while she printed forms and made phone calls. 20 minutes later, I was officially unemployed. I returned to my desk and began the methodical process of clearing out 6 years of accumulated work life. Personal photos. The coffee mug my team gave me for my 5th anniversary. Notebooks filled with brainstorming sessions and strategy notes. Stephanie appeared at my cubicle entrance, her face stricken. Emma, what's happening? Paolo said you resigned. I did. I'm leaving today. Today? But the Anderson account. The December project. Not my problem anymore. The words felt powerful. Liberating. Mr. Thompson's going to lose his mind. Probably. I kept packing, folding sweaters I'd kept in my desk drawer for cold office days. Emma, I get it. I really do. But are you sure? Do you have another job lined up? No. But I have savings. And more importantly, I have my self-respect back. Stephanie hugged me suddenly, fiercely. I'm going to miss you. But I'm also kind of jealous. You actually did it. You walked away. You could too, you know. Nobody has to stay in a place that doesn't value them. She pulled back, tears in her eyes. I know, but I'm not as brave as you. It's not brave. It's just refusing to accept less than I deserve. At 5 p.m., I walked out of Horizon Digital for the last time. No fanfare. No goodbye party. Just me, carrying a box of personal items, walking toward my car in the parking lot. I spent the next 3 days in a strange limbo. Not working felt odd after 6 years of constant activity. I slept late, took long walks, and avoided thinking too hard about what came next. My parents called, confused about whether I was still coming for Christmas. Actually, I have all the time in the world now. I told my mother. I quit my job. You what? I resigned. I'm flying out next week as originally planned. She was silent for a moment. Emma, sweetheart, what happened? I explained about the canceled leave, about Mr. Thompson's casual dismissal of my needs, about the 6 years of accumulated resentment finally breaking through. Good for you, she said firmly. That man didn't deserve you. No job is worth your mental health. On day 4, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Emma? It's Mr. Thompson. His voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the panic underneath. We need to talk. Hello, Mr. Thompson. What can I do for you? What you can do is explain why you left without any notice. Do you have any idea what position you've put us in? I smiled, though he couldn't see it. I imagine you're scrambling to cover the Anderson account. That must be stressful. This isn't funny, Emma. That account is worth $400,000 annually. You managed it exclusively. Nobody else has the relationship or knowledge to handle the rebrand. That sounds like a management problem, not a me problem. I'm calling to see if we can work something out. Come back for 2 weeks. Train someone. We'll pay you a contractor rate. No, thank you. Emma, be reasonable. You can't just walk away from 6 years of work. Watch me. I already did. Mr. Thompson's voice hardened. This is incredibly unprofessional. You're burning bridges. Bridges to where? Back to a place that canceled my approved leave with 2 weeks' notice? Back to a boss who treated me as disposable until he needed something? I never said you were disposable. You showed it. Every time you took credit for my work. Every time you denied my raise requests. Every time you prioritized your convenience over my well-being. He was quiet for a long moment. I didn't realize you felt that way. That's part of the problem, Mr. Thompson. You never bothered to notice. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From the sheer power of finally speaking my truth. The liberation I felt after that phone call was extraordinary. For 6 years, I'd swallowed my frustrations, moderated my tone, made myself smaller to avoid conflict. Speaking openly to Mr. Thompson about his failures as a manager felt like breaking chains I didn't realize I'd been wearing. That evening, I treated myself to an expensive dinner at a restaurant I'd always wanted to try, but never felt I had time for. Sitting alone with a glass of wine and perfectly prepared salmon, I reflected on how much of my life I'd sacrificed for a job that would replace me within 2 weeks. I'd missed friends' weddings because of work deadlines. I'd canceled dates because Mr. Thompson needed urgent presentations. I'd skipped gym sessions, cooking classes, and volunteer opportunities because I was too exhausted from giving everything to Horizon Digital. And for what? A salary that never increased proportionally to my contributions. A title without corresponding authority. A boss who valued my output, but not my humanity. My phone buzzed with a text from Stephanie. Mr. Thompson is freaking out. He spent 2 hours today trying to get into your project files. Paolo is drowning. It's chaos. I shouldn't be happy about it, but I am. I smiled. Sometimes the best revenge is letting someone face the natural consequences of their actions. 2 weeks passed. I flew to Oregon and spent Christmas with my parents, hiking in the mountains, sleeping until noon, and remembering what it felt like to exist without constant workplace stress. My mother kept watching me with a mixture of pride and concern. You seem different, she said one evening while we prepared dinner together. Lighter somehow. I feel lighter. Like I've been carrying a weight I didn't realize was there until I set it down. What are you going to do next? Job-wise, I mean. I don't know yet. Part of me wants to take some time off, really figure out what I want. I have savings. I can afford to be deliberate instead of desperate. That's very mature of you. I chopped vegetables, considering. I spent 6 years trying to prove myself worthy of respect that was never going to come. No amount of hard work would have changed Mr. Thompson's fundamental view of employees as resources. Now I'm free to find a place that actually values people. My father joined us, having overheard the conversation. Your boss called here yesterday. I nearly dropped my knife.
What?
He tracked down our number somehow. Asked me to convince you to come back. Said the company was struggling without you. What did you tell him? My father smiled grimly. I told him that any company that can't function without one employee has bigger problems than staffing, and that he should have thought about consequences before canceling your leave. Back in the city after New Year's, I started exploring new possibilities. I updated my resume, reached out to contacts, and joined networking groups I'd never had time for while working 60-hour weeks. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within a week, I had 3 informational interviews scheduled. Within 2 weeks, I had 2 job offers. One was with a larger firm, better salary, similar role. The other was with a startup, slightly lower pay, but promising equity and a focus on work-life balance. I accepted neither immediately. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. I started a consulting business. Years of managing major accounts had taught me everything I needed to know about corporate marketing strategy. Why work for one company when I could work with multiple clients on my own terms? I registered the LLC, built a website, and reached out to my network. Within days, I had my first consultation booked. A small business owner needed help rebranding. The meeting was at a coffee shop, casual and collaborative. No conference rooms.
No office politics.
Just 2 people solving a problem together. Driving home afterward, I felt a surge of possibility. I was building something that belonged to me. Something Mr. Thompson couldn't take credit for, cancel, or control. My former colleagues started reaching out. Paolo called one evening, his voice strained. Emma, I need to pick your brain about something. Off the record. What's going on? Mr. Thompson put me in charge of the Anderson account. It's a disaster. They're threatening to leave. The rebrand deadline is next week, and we're nowhere close. Part of me felt vindicated. Another part felt sorry for Paolo, who was collateral damage in Mr. Thompson's poor management. What specific issues are you facing? We talked for an hour. I gave him strategic advice, pointed him toward resources, and helped him develop a framework for salvaging the project. I didn't do the work for him, but I gave him tools to succeed. Why are you helping me? Paolo asked finally. You don't owe us anything. I'm not helping the company. I'm helping you. You didn't cancel my leave.
You didn't treat me badly.
You're just stuck cleaning up someone else's mess. After we hung up, I thought about the difference between revenge and boundary setting. Revenge would have been refusing to help, watching Horizon Digital fail, taking pleasure in their struggles. Boundary setting was recognizing that their problems weren't mine anymore, while still being kind to individuals who'd been decent to me. A week later, I received an email from Mr. Thompson. The subject line read, "Formal apology." I almost deleted it unread. But curiosity won. Emma, I want to formally apologize for how I treated you during your time at Horizon Digital. Looking back, I can see that I took your contributions for granted, dismissed your needs, and failed to recognize your value until it was too late. The company is struggling without you. More importantly, I'm realizing that my management style has driven away other talented people over the years. I'm working with an executive coach to address these issues. I know this apology doesn't undo the damage, and I'm not asking you to come back. I just wanted you to know that I recognize my failures. You deserved better, and I'm sorry I didn't provide it. I read the email 3 times. It seemed genuine, but it also didn't change anything. Apologies, no matter how sincere, don't erase patterns of behavior that took years to develop. I replied briefly. Thank you for the apology. I accept it, and I hope you create a better environment for your current and future employees. I've moved on to new opportunities and wish you well. Professional, courteous, final. My consulting business exploded faster than I'd anticipated. Within 2 months, I had 5 regular clients and was turning away work. A major brand reached out through a mutual connection, asking if I'd consult on their annual marketing strategy. The contract was worth $75,000 for 3 months of work, more than half my annual salary at Horizon Digital for a quarter of the time commitment. I hired an accountant to manage the growing complexity. I rented a small office space. I established boundaries. No emails after 6 p.m., no weekend work except in genuine emergencies, and mandatory time off every quarter. I was building the professional life I'd always wanted, but never thought possible. One afternoon, scrolling through LinkedIn, I saw that Horizon Digital was hiring for a new marketing manager. The job description was almost word for word what I'd been doing. Starting salary, $20,000 more than I'd been making. I showed Stephanie over coffee. She shook her head in disgust. They could afford to pay you fairly all along. They just chose not to. Which tells you everything about how they valued me. Half the marketing team has updated their resumes since you left. Nobody wants to work for Mr. Thompson anymore.
Good.
Maybe he'll finally learn that people aren't disposable. 6 months after my resignation, my consulting business had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. I'd hired 2 part-time assistants and was considering bringing on a junior consultant. The work was challenging, varied, and most importantly mine. Nobody could take credit for my success. Nobody could cancel my time off. Nobody could treat me as less than I was worth. One evening, attending a marketing conference, I ran into Mr. Thompson. He saw me from across the hotel lobby and approached cautiously.
Emma.
I wasn't sure you'd be here. Why wouldn't I be? I work in marketing.
Right.
Of course. I heard you started consulting. That's going well?
Very well.
Better than I expected. He shifted uncomfortably. I wanted you to know that I've implemented some changes at Horizon. Mandatory leave policies. Better work-life balance initiatives. Annual compensation reviews. That's good. Your employees will appreciate it. I learned the hard way that talented people won't stay in environments that don't respect them. I nodded.
Yes.
They won't. We stood there awkwardly. This man who'd once had power over my daily life, now just another person at a conference. Emma, I know I apologized before, but I want you to know I really am sorry. Losing you was a wake-up call I needed, but didn't deserve. I appreciate that, and I genuinely hope you've changed. But Mr. Thompson, I'm glad I left. I'm happier now than I ever was working for you. The best moment came a year after my resignation. I was invited to speak on a panel about entrepreneurship in marketing. The audience was packed with young professionals, many of them stuck in jobs similar to what I'd left. During Q&A, a woman raised her hand. How did you know it was time to leave your corporate job? I thought carefully before answering. I didn't wake up one day with perfect clarity. It was gradual. But the turning point was when my boss canceled pre-approved leave for a project that could have been managed differently. In that moment, I realized that no amount of loyalty from me would generate reciprocal respect from him. The audience murmured with recognition. Walking away felt terrifying, but staying felt worse. I was shrinking myself to fit into a space that would never accommodate me. Once I understood that, leaving became the only logical choice. After the panel, a dozen people approached me. They shared their own stories of being undervalued, overworked, and overlooked. Many asked for advice about starting their own consulting practices. I gave out my email generously, offering to mentor anyone serious about making the leap. On my way out, I saw Mr. Thompson at the back of the room. He'd apparently been in the audience. Our eyes met. He nodded once, acknowledgement and respect, then left. That silent exchange felt like closure. My consulting business continued growing. By the 18-month mark, I was making double my corporate salary while working 30-hour weeks. I traveled for pleasure, took yoga classes, and started painting again, a hobby I'd abandoned in my early 20s because I was too busy. Friends commented on how different I seemed. Lighter, more present, actually available for dinner plans and weekend trips. You're like a different person, my best friend Holly said over brunch one Sunday. I feel like a different person. Or maybe I'm finally myself again. I don't know. Do you ever regret leaving Horizon?
Never.
Not even for a second. My only regret is staying as long as I did. What would you tell your former self? Before the resignation, I considered this. I'd tell her that her worth isn't determined by how much she produces or how accommodating she is. That a job requiring you to sacrifice your well-being isn't worth keeping, no matter how prestigious or stable it seems. That's powerful. It took a canceled vacation and a lot of accumulated resentment for me to learn it. But once I did, everything changed. The check came. I paid without thinking about it, without calculating whether I could afford it. Financial stability plus personal freedom was a combination I'd never imagined possible under someone else's employment. I heard through the professional grapevine that Mr. Thompson was struggling. Not because his company was failing, they'd managed to stabilize after my departure, but because his reputation had taken a hit. Word spreads in industries. People talk. And enough former employees had shared stories that his name was becoming associated with poor management and high turnover. One former colleague told me he'd been passed over for a board position at an industry organization. Another mentioned that several top candidates had turned down job offers from Horizon Digital after researching the company culture. I didn't take pleasure in his struggles, but I did recognize them as natural consequences. You can't treat people badly for years and expect no professional repercussions. Mr. Thompson had built his career on being the brilliant visionary, the driven leader, but he'd neglected the human element. And in an increasingly transparent professional world, that neglect had a price. Meanwhile, my business flourished specifically because of how I treated people. Clients appreciated my responsiveness, my honesty, and my commitment to their success. My assistants stayed because I paid them fairly and respected their boundaries. Referrals came easily because people trusted me. The career I'd built on values that Mr. Thompson had dismissed as soft was proving more sustainable than his approach ever had. 2 years after my resignation, I made it official. I would never return to traditional employment. The freedom, fulfillment, and financial success I'd found consulting made corporate jobs impossible to imagine. I'd proven to myself that I didn't need someone else's validation or structure to succeed. My worth wasn't contingent on a boss's approval. I was valuable because of what I created, how I treated people, and the quality of work I delivered. Not because someone with authority said so. I thought back to that Monday afternoon when Mr. Thompson had canceled my leave. How devastated I'd felt. How trapped. That moment had seemed like an ending. But it was actually a beginning. The beginning of understanding my own power. The beginning of refusing to accept less than I deserved. The beginning of building a life that actually fit who I was, rather than contorting myself to fit someone else's expectations. My December trip to Oregon, the one that had been canceled, became an annual tradition. Every year, I blocked out 2 weeks in December for family time. No clients. No projects. No negotiations. And nobody could tell me otherwise. That autonomy, that simple ability to make decisions about my own time, was worth more than any salary increase Mr. Thompson could have offered. The ripple effects of my resignation continued surprising me. Stephanie eventually left Horizon Digital, inspired by my example. She started freelancing as a graphic designer and reported being happier than she'd been in years. Paolo transitioned to a smaller firm that valued work-life balance. Others followed, each one citing my departure as motivation to reassess their own situations. I hadn't meant to start a movement. I'd just protected my own well-being. But apparently, watching someone successfully walk away from a toxic situation empowered others to do the same. We'd formed a loose network, former Horizon employees who'd moved on to better things. We met quarterly for dinner, celebrating each other's successes and supporting career transitions. At one gathering, Paolo raised his glass to Emma, who showed us all that we didn't have to settle for being undervalued. Everyone clinked glasses. I felt unexpectedly emotional. I didn't do anything special. I just finally stood up for myself. That's exactly what made it special, Stephanie said. You made it look possible. Before you left, we all felt trapped. After you left, we realized the cage door was open. That perspective shifted something in me. My resignation hadn't just been personal liberation. It had been an example that permission to leave a bad situation doesn't come from authority figures. It comes from yourself. Financial success followed naturally from the foundation I'd built. By year 3, my consulting firm was generating $400,000 annually, the same amount as the Anderson account that Mr. Thompson had been so desperate to save. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd become worth exactly what I'd been working on when he canceled my leave. But now that money came to me under my terms doing work I found meaningful. I hired a business manager to handle operations while I focused on strategy and client relationships. I brought on 2 full-time consultants, both talented professionals leaving corporate jobs for more flexibility. I paid them well, offered profit sharing, and made sure they never felt disposable. My company culture was intentionally designed as the opposite of what I'd experienced at Horizon Digital. Transparent communication, fair compensation, genuine work-life balance. Treating people as whole humans with lives outside work, not just resources to extract value from. The business world had taught me what not to do. Mr. Thompson had been my greatest teacher, though not in the way he'd intended. His example showed me exactly the type of leader I never wanted to be. And in building the opposite, I'd created something sustainable, ethical, and profitable. Turns out, respecting people isn't just morally right. It's good business. Years later, Mr. Thompson reached out one final time, not asking for anything, just congratulating me on an award I'd received from a professional marketing organization. "Emma, I saw you won Innovator of the Year. Congratulations. That's a remarkable achievement." "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I've followed your career from a distance. What you've built is impressive. You've become one of the most respected consultants in the industry. I appreciate that. I wanted you to know that your resignation was the best thing that happened to me, professionally speaking. It forced me to confront failures I'd been blind to. I'm glad some good came from it. More than good. You inspired me to completely rethink my approach to leadership. I'll never be perfect, but I'm better than I was. And that's because you refused to tolerate less than you deserved." We talked for a few more minutes, cordial and distant. When we hung up, I felt a sense of completion. Mr. Thompson's growth wasn't my responsibility or my victory. But knowing that my departure had contributed to positive change felt right. The decision I'd made that quiet morning, typing my resignation letter before anyone else arrived at the office, had cascaded into effects I never imagined. Personal liberation, professional success, inspiration for others, and maybe, just maybe, a small contribution to changing workplace culture. I became a mentor, teaching others how to navigate their own career transitions without compromising their values. I gave talks at universities, professional organizations, and women's groups. My message was always the same: your worth isn't determined by how much you tolerate. Loyalty should be reciprocal. If your workplace doesn't respect you, you don't owe it your health, happiness, or time. Young professionals approached me constantly, asking how to know when it's time to leave a job. I always gave the same answer: when staying costs more than leaving. And I don't just mean financially. When the emotional, mental, and physical toll of staying exceeds the uncertainty of leaving, it's time. Many of them were where I'd been, trapped by fear of instability, convinced they should be grateful for any job, worried that leaving would prove they were weak or uncommitted. I understood those fears intimately. I'd carried them for 6 years. The truth is, I'd tell them, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Not from challenges or hard work, but from situations that fundamentally don't value you. I never told anyone they should quit, but I did tell them they could. That permission, that simple acknowledgement of agency, often changed everything. Today, I'm standing at the forefront of something I never planned to build, a movement toward better corporate culture. My company has grown to 15 consultants, all former corporate refugees who wanted something different. We work with organizations to improve employee retention, build respectful workplaces, and create cultures where people thrive. The canceled December leave that felt like the worst thing that could happen turned out to be a gift. It broke the spell of loyalty to a place that didn't value me. It forced me to confront how much I'd been settling. It gave me the push I needed to build something better. I still take December off every year. Still visit my parents in Oregon. Still hike those mountains and remember the version of myself who thought she had no choice but to accept whatever her boss demanded. That woman feels like a stranger now. She was smaller, quieter, convinced her worth was conditional on someone else's approval. The woman I am now knows differently. I know that my value is inherent, not earned. That respect is a baseline requirement, not a privilege to beg for. That the best revenge isn't burning bridges. It's building something so much better that the bridge you left behind becomes irrelevant. Mr. Thompson taught me what not to tolerate. My resignation taught me what I could create. And the life I've built since then has taught me the most important lesson of all. Sometimes you have to disappoint people who never properly valued you in order to become the person you were always meant to be.